what's going on,
Oh,
man?
there it is. Good. Not much. How about yourself?
I'm doing excellent. Today is I'm sorry, I was gonna say March. It's April 6th already, 2021. And today I have Tyler Humphreys here from HSBK Racing. This is the Eric Swahn Racing.com podcast number 49 already. So it's getting up there. So welcome and thanks for talking to me for an hour or so.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to it, I gotta say.
So yeah, it's not exactly an interview. I'm trying to get away from just question and answer so much, but
Sure,
more of a
sure.
conversation. So you can ask me stuff. We can shoot the shit, talk about whatever. And so I asked you, what did you want to talk about today? Some things were racing. You want to talk about the state of road racing in the U.S. and racer and rider development. So
Yeah.
you want to kick us off with one of those?
Yeah, sure. I mean, honestly, I feel like the best way to start this off with kind of anything is kind of not to be like, oh, I want to talk about myself, but kind of just give some background about, who I am, what I know, and my experiences in the world of motorcycles and everything else. I'm 22. I just moved up here to Scranton, Pennsylvania to work for HSBK Racing at the end of last year. Prior to that, I got into road racing in 2016 when I was about 17. And started off with mini riding at New Jersey Mini GP, and from there took it to CCS for some regional races and everything else, mainly in the lightweight category. And then in 2018, I did my first rounds of Moto America in the Twins Cup and had some solid finishes there, 2 top 5 finishes and a pole position. And then since then, it's just kind of been a balance of racing and college at the same time. I just graduated last year this time. So it's been a wild ride, and I can't believe that motorcycles have come into my life and changed it so dramatically, because if it wasn't for them, I'd probably be sitting in the office somewhere doing taxes or something like that. And yeah, it's kind of crazy how it all comes full circle. All the different experiences I've had, all the people I've worked for over the years, that kind of got me into the position I'm in. It was because of when I was in college, I got a job for Eldorado Faraci at Fast by Faraci when he was closing up his dealership in PA. And so I kind of got to spend a few months there working for him, one of the literally biggest legends in the world of road racing. And then when this whole new move for HSBK came about, for them moving up here to Pennsylvania, they were looking for some new employees and everything else. And Faraci threw my name out there. And next thing you know, I was getting a phone call and interviewing. And a few months later, here I am in the thick of it. So, yeah.
That's a pretty cool story. And so you've been road racing for a while now. Was it something that was always in your family, or did you jump into it?
Road racing definitely wasn't. Motorcycle racing in general wasn't. Like growing up, I rode motocross as a little kid, and I was absolutely horrible at it. Like I had really no business being on a motocross track whatsoever. And it was just a kind of a stroke of luck that I ended up in the world of road racing. And my dad was, looking for someone to do some graphics work when I initially got my first job in a bike shop, and there's found a guy who did graphics works, and in the same building was a guy who did bike stuff. Metric Devil Moto, he's another guy out here in Pennsylvania, does a lot of regional stuff. He's the regional Pirelli vendor and stuff as well. And next thing I knew, I had a job working for him in his shop when I was 17. And after about being there for a few months of wrenching on race bikes, I was like, well, this seems pretty awesome. I want to get into this. And then
Yeah.
I did, and kind of dove in head first and really became a student of the sport as much as I could. So whether that was watching old GP races or old World Superbike races, whatever I could get my hands on, I was watching it and reading books and everything. And yeah, and then the love just followed it, and addicted thoroughly now. So
I always think about the idea of, what if there was a televised WERA series for amateur races, or CCS or ASARA, or any of those West Coast series that they have that are amateur. I know we have sometimes struggling to get people watching the professional races, but
yeah.
it's growing and it's getting better all the time. So I think it would just be so cool to see the amateurs come up from their first race, because that's really where I had my first race, was WERA. And you just grow from there.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And I think in order for that to happen, I don't mean this as a way to just knock down Moto America or anything, but I feel like before we worry about the regional stuff, having that exposure and kind of promotion, I think the Moto America just needs to get a little bit better with what they're doing. Like the commentating lacks sometimes. Like as a racer myself, like watching it and then listening to what they're saying, it's like, that's not what just happened. That's not what's going on here. Like that guy almost died tipping into whatever turn, and you're not going to talk about that, but you're going to tell me about how his cousin does this. Like, I don't care. Like we need a commentator in there who really understands the sport of road racing and can really help translate that to the vast majority of the public in the United States who don't know what road racing is and don't understand how it works. Because in reality, it's a very, very complex sport. And with a lot of tiny nuances that you don't realize are a big deal until you're actually on a bike and doing laps and you realize, oh my God, that's actually a thing. I think that, and then once that's a solid foundation, that's kind of setting the tone for how it is, then things like ASRA and CCS and WERA can take that and meld it into something else. And I think it also starts with, even before broadcasting those things, even just getting more stable results posted places and a clearer understanding of how it all works. Because in reality, a new racer coming into any of the club stuff, unless you have someone there to hold your hand and walk you through the whole process, I feel like it's a super confusing thing. Like you're like, what are these classes? What does my bike qualify for? What doesn't it qualify for? What's the difference between expert and amateur? The list goes on and on.
And that's a reason why I'm trying to do this, is to help give more people information, because I knew nothing. I knew nobody who raced. You know, my parents didn't even want me to have a motorcycle. So it was an uphill battle from the start.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I was so determined to do it. I was like, I don't care if I don't know how. You don't need to know all the steps to start. And I just started, and you learn, and you ask tons of questions. And because I asked so many questions, I gained a lot of friends, you know, and just become a sponge.
Yeah, and that, I think that's something really cool about road racing too, is wherever you are in any paddock, whether it's a track day, a race weekend, you know, whether a regional race weekend or a pro race weekend, the camaraderie you get in the pits and the paddock, and everyone always willing to help each other out and, you know, offer spare parts, offer advice, offer whatever else. It's awesome. I think it's one of the things that make road racing so awesome, is just how inviting and open the community is.
Right. And sometimes to our detriment, like I've helped my competitors out with parts that maybe if I didn't give them, they wouldn't have raced. And it's like, why did I do that? But I want them out there because I know I'd rather compete with them than just beat them because you didn't have the parts and I have one in my toolbox. That's not right.
Agreed, completely. And even like in that same vein, when I was even more so in my amateur year of CCS, I don't think I lost a single race that year unless I crashed trying to race the experts. But like I would always have the other amateurs or even some of the experts coming up to me asking me questions and stuff, like riding based stuff. And I'm always happy to help and point people in the right direction where, as far as I can. I've been very blessed to be surrounded by awesome people. Like I said, Mike excuse me, my words are breaking, but Mike at Metric Devil Moto, Evolve GT, they've been supporters of mine since the very beginning. And just because of that and the awesome people I've been surrounded with, and same as you, like I've tried to become a sponge and just soak it in as much as I can and just pass that knowledge along to other people, I think is something that is just crucial for us as racers, for the sport to grow.
Yeah. And so you've been racing a little while and now you're in the crew chief side of it, or not the crew side of it anyways.
To an extent. So my role at HSBK is we have our online store, which is kind of what's HSBK is kind of founded on. Like, you know, obviously we specialize in the Italian bikes, so Aprilias and Ducatis, but we have parts for every bike under the sun. So I'm more so on the management side of the website. So I don't necessarily go racing or testing with the team. I kind of have to stay back and hold down the fort. But at the same time, you know, every day now in the shop, there's Loris Baz and the mechanics from overseas in the shop. So that's definitely like a starstruck moment for me. Like when Loris flew in, it's like all of a sudden I'm sitting there eating dinner with a guy who I was watching on TV cheering on last year. And it's just like, it's insane.
Right. And so he's a world level rider. That's got to bring some excitement to your team this year.
Absolutely. I think it's exciting, not only for the team, but for Moto America too. Because I remember it was a similar narrative when Tony Elias first came over. It was like, oh, this is big, right? We're getting a guy who has literally won MotoGP races onto, you know, the Moto America grid. And similar with Loris, right? Like World Superbike guys, won the races, has been there in the championship fight and everything. And even last year was top 10 in the championship on arguably the slowest bike in the championship. And it's like, ooh, it's the big time now.
Got some talent, and yeah, to be competing at that level for so long is it's such a high level. And
Mhm.
he comes over here in the tests, and is of course topping the timesheets. And everybody's like, oh, but he's been there before. But he's also a professional world level rider. So we'll see how if he struggles at the tracks he doesn't know, but
Mhm.
I'm sure he won't have too much trouble.
I think when it comes to that, what a lot of people who aren't at that level don't realize is these guys don't struggle with learning new tracks. Even the Moto America guys, like back when they first went to pit race, whatever, I think it was that 2018, I guess, or was that 20? I don't know.
After the repave, yeah.
Yeah. Even then, when I think it was either Josh Hayes or Bobby Fong, like they set one of their fastest laps of the weekend, like their second or third lap out on the track ever. And it's like, that's all those guys are. Like they're so surgical and so precise with how they ride the bike and how they approach a new racetrack that learning a track's really only a matter of a couple of laps, and then they know where everything is. And then it's just a matter of fine tuning the machine and themselves from there.
I mean, for me, I like to be comfortable with the track and have maybe, a couple of practice and test sessions and maybe a track day or two before I go race it. But sometimes you don't have a choice. Like if
No.
you're going to a track, or for them, they're going to other sides of the country, other countries, other continents all the time. So you don't get the chance to test on it beforehand. You get like 3 tests or practice sessions, and then
Yeah.
it's time to race it.
Yeah. And yeah, that's the brutal beast that is racing at that level. And it's amazing. It really is. Like even just MotoGP, even like FP1 for those guys, they come out just swinging. Like I am obviously not at that level myself. I love new tracks, and I think I can pick them up pretty quick, but it's impressive to watch them.
Yeah, well, they also have a team of data engineers and technicians telling them
Sure.
this is exactly where you should be braking. I don't know if they get that in detail with them, but I'm
Mhm.
sure they talk about their braking points, and maybe I can push it further here, or the rear is sliding too much here.
Mhm.
And they have clipboards and all kinds of TV screens in front of
Yeah,
them.
tons of spreadsheets and everything else. Yeah, the data side of things over the last few years, at least the last few years domestically, has really also changed everything. Because a few years ago, you didn't see midfield super sport teams with full blown data acquisition on their super sport bikes, but now you do. And that's such a big benefit for those guys, going to a track after not being there for a year and being able to sit down and look at last year's data, look at this year's, and see where they might be lacking or see where they've already improved.
And you know what? I'm so excited for when I get back into racing in the next couple of years that I never really mess with my suspension almost at all. And I never had a data acquisition. I never had a GPS lap timer that I installed on my bike or anything like that. So
Yeah.
it's like I was always flying in the dark. I mean, I had some notes written down on loose leaf paper. That was about it for my turn-in points and
Yeah.
things like that. But I didn't do it. I didn't have a team. It was just me, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Yeah.
But I was fast. You just it's amazing how much better I think I could be with a team, or at least one extra person, another set of hands that's always dedicated to coming, who knows the bike or who knows at least your machinery.
Yeah. And at the club stuff, at the local level, even just having someone there to take your tire warmers off and help you put fuel in the bike and little stuff like that makes such a big difference. It just takes that little bit of extra weight off your shoulders and allows you to really focus in on what's going on and what you need to do as a rider.
For sure. So what was on your mind today? What do you want to talk about?
Oh man. What do I want to talk about? That's a great question. I don't know. Like, I just love talking about anything and everything involving racing. I really do. Like, that's all it comes down to. And it's funny, like talking to the mechanics that we have now on the team, from one's from Italy, one's from Britain, top tier guys, and like talking to them about like how overseas, right? Road racing is a commonly known sport. Like, their friends who not necessarily super into it still know what it is, and still know it's a thing, and it's still a big deal. Whereas here in the States, like going through college, I didn't encounter another person who even knew what Moto America was, let alone, MotoGP or anything like that. And just somehow, if I just hope and pray, like obviously the disparity there is because motorcycles are just such a bigger part of life in Europe and Asia. Like pretty much everyone, has motorcycles or knows what they are. Or they're just more ingrained in culture. Whereas here, I feel like they're more treated as a commodity or a toy or something to go do on the weekends or whatever. Whereas, overseas, it's a lifestyle. And I don't know if there's any coming back from that. I hate to be like a guy who's like, oh, road racing is dying in the States, but it almost kind of is in a sad way. Like there's just not a lot of young interest in it, unfortunately.
So I think it comes down to, school and what they do in school. Everybody goes and play football, soccer, hockey, and there's no road racing, motorsport avenue for them to go into because there's so many red flags about danger maybe or expense. But a bigger factor is just our culture. I think everybody in the States, we tend to get cars when we're 16.
Mm-hmm.
In Europe, they get scooters when they're 12, and they just progress from there. And most people never get scooters in the States. My first car was a motorcycle. I bought a motorcycle in cash when I was 16 years old. And I didn't have to buy a car because I used my brother's and he didn't have to use it all that much. So it kind of worked out. But in Michigan, it kind of sucks to have only a two-wheeled machine because it's negative 35 degrees sometimes and there's a foot of snow on the ground.
Yeah, for sure. And also I think a part of it too is when it comes to our culture is I think we as an American people tend to like things that offer instant gratification a lot more than we like things that take a lot of work and effort to get gratification from. And that's the thing about racing, any racing, whether it be road racing, dirt bike racing, car racing, whatever. The amount of work, time, effort, money, blood, sweat, and tears you got to pour in to even have a successful race weekend, even if that only means finishing all the races, is astronomical, right? Like the amount of things you have to have going on in your head to prepare for something like that is huge. And it's easily off-putting, especially when you can say, well, why would I go do that when I can go, I don't know, whatever else your other
fishing,
exactly, right? Go fishing for an afternoon, spend $20 on some bait and whatever, and be done for the day and pack it up and have a good time. And I get that to an extent, but I'm sure yourself, obviously having raced, like there's nothing like that feeling of gritting up for a race and staring down towards turn one with 20 other bikes around you and revving up. Like you just can't replace that.
Yeah, that's what I can't wait to get back to that. I'm building my own business, EricSwannRacing.com, to help fund my race program. I was racing, I did track days, a full season track days in 2011, and then I raced from 12 to 15 and became novice, expert, pro. I got my pro license, but I didn't do any pro races. It kind of ran out of money. And, I had 20 sponsors, but it wasn't enough. So I'm just trying to help fund it myself with selling motorsports products. I have 7 rows of shelving in my basement here, ESR World Headquarters. And so I also do drop shipping. So I have products like M4 performance exhaust, driven racing, Moto D, bike stands, tire warmers, rear sets, all kinds of bike parts, and trying to expand into gear. I have Revit race suits, a lot of different apparel brands, Kriega, Rucka, and Rocker. So
that's what's up. Yeah, and that's important too. Obviously, like having that supply chain there, and knowing where to get the parts too as a guy getting into the sport. Because getting into the sport, you can be easily tempted to be like, oh, I want these Chinese rear sets and they're half the price and these tire warmers will work. But getting the knowledge on that stuff too at a early point in your career of road racing, if you will, is really important. And something else that I think I learned real quick too was it was literally my second ever regional race weekend with CCS, and I had done very well in my first one. I had beaten all the experts in one of my races. So like I was going in the second one with high expectations on my own shoulders. So like, all right, I did that last time. Now I need to go and do it again. I need to show everyone that I'm the best amateur there ever was or ever will be. first race of the weekend. It was actually my birthday too. My mom's first time ever coming to the track to see me race. And on the warm-up lap of my first race of the weekend, I smash myself and break my wrist and collarbone simultaneously.
Oh no.
Yeah. And so like we go to the hospital, I get, kind of patched up, and my parents are like, all right, well, we're going to go home. I'm like, no, I want to go back to the track. So they let me go back to the track for the night and everything else. And I was walking around, riding around on a scooter still with my arm all slung up and everything. And I saw a buddy of mine named Joe, and he was like, listen, man, he's like, no bullshit for a second. I've seen way too many young kids who have, talent on a bike and have a good, crew around them and everything else, get into this sport and go way, way too hard, way, way too fast. And you just burn yourself out, because it doesn't care how much you put in, right? The sport doesn't care how much effort you put in or how much you care or anything else. It'll chew you up and it'll spit you back out with broken bones and a broken bike like that. And he's like, do yourself and everyone else around you a favor and just slow down a little bit. Take it easy. Like, there's no reason to go out there and kill yourself for nothing. And that conversation, whatever it was, 4 or 5 years ago at this point, has stuck with me all the way through. And honestly, I've seen a lot of people my age who, got in the sport, were way faster than me and, really good and had good speed, went right into the KTM Cup when it was around. And then they had a few bad weekends and, things got a little, hectic on the family side or whatever. And then they just drop off the face of the planet and you never see them on a motorcycle again. And
Well, yeah, it takes a lot of dedication,
Yeah.
like you're saying, because there are so many hardships and trials and tribulations and engine malfunctions and transmission blows that you have to really be, I guess, what's the right word? Stubborn, or
Yes.
you just have to have this certain mentality that I don't care what happens, I'm gonna get through it, and I'm gonna be better on the other side of it. And a lot of people don't have that, and if you don't have that, you're not gonna last very long in racing.
Exactly. And just being in it for the long haul. I think that's the important thing, because I personally, I want to be doing track days still and coaching and racing still in 10, 15 years time from now. Right. And I know that if I give it everything I have in myself to go, I got to make this Moto America round. I got to make all these regional rounds. I have to. I'm going to end up in a situation where I'm out of money. My relationships, whether it be with friends or family or sponsors, are strained, because when you're running at that high of a level and trying to do all these things, it's hard. And unless you have all the means to just pay for everything up right, it's going to come with financial hardships as well, because I don't think a lot of people realize just how much money you spend road racing.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. Even at a regional level, I mean, it's what, at least $1,500 to $2,000 per event.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
If you're just doing the bare minimum. And what I did was, I did it kind of crazy. Maybe most people don't do it this way, but I did all but one race that I could every weekend. So I would do both C's, both B's, and both A's. So both 600, 750, and 1000, Superbike and Super Stock.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it'd be a double header. So you'd have 6 on Saturday, 6 on Sunday.
Yep.
But normally it'd be the solo 20, which is not for points, just like a 20 lap race in your class. And then you'd have the 6 on Sunday for points. So that's a lot of racing. And, I only have one motorcycle.
Yeah.
So I'd be going through 2 rears and a front usually per weekend. So that adds up quick,
Big time.
And, but it's a blast, man. I can't wait to get back to doing it. Like you're saying, it's so financially straining, and I found everything in my life, like the physical items that I had aside from racing, were just getting broken. My clothes was like, I needed to buy new clothing, like everything. My shoes had holes in them. Like everything went to racing. And so I'm out of racing. I've been doing other racing, like mountain bike and foot racing. It's cheaper now.
Yeah.
But now that I'm out of it, I'm starting to like buy new socks and like the small things,
Yes.
It's just, you put off so many things because I need a new lap timer, I need a new rear set, I need a new track days coming up next month. It's like, geez, it's just, I'm not made of money yet, and until my business is selling a lot, I'm gonna stay at arm's length, because I love the sport. I really do. And the only way I can feasibly be in the sport until I'm 90 years old is if I have a business that's producing, selling a lot of stuff. So that's my plan, is to sell a lot of stuff So if you want to help my journey, go to ericsfundraising.com and spend all your money, please.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I'm the same way. Like, I remember in college, right? Like everyone talks about broke college kids, and that was still absolutely me. But I was broke by choice 100%, because I'd be like the most frugal guy, right? Like buy the cheapest beer and no, I don't need to eat out. I don't need to eat out, blah, blah, blah. And then the very next weekend, turn around and drop $800 on rear tires alone. And it's like, those are the trade-offs, right? Like, and that's what I think, at least in my generation, I feel like a lot of the people I serve, a lot of my friends, not that it's a bad thing or anything. It's like, it's just that extra level. Everyone knows is like, why are you doing that? Come on, just, you have money, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, you don't understand. You need to save those dollars. Every dollar counts when you're standing in the registration line. You know, you got a $400 bill coming up.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Definitely figure out how to live on less. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You know, I've figured out how to, live on a smaller percentage of my income, and you can save the rest of it, and it really changes your life.
For sure. For sure. Recently too, well, not recently, but about a year ago, I got into the video making side of things too, because I've always been like, I'm a fan of guys on YouTube, like Adam LZ is like the main one. He's like a drifter and everything else, and I've been following him for a lot of years, where he was like, before he was just a BMX guy, and now he's like a pro level drift driver. And I watched that transition over the years, just following him on YouTube, and I go, you know what, why isn't there anyone doing stuff like that for road racing?
So he is a drift car driver or drift
Yeah,
motorcycle?
drift car driver. So
Okay.
and he drifts in Formula Drift, which is like the national championship for drifting. Cars built to the moon with 1,000 horsepower and everything. And
Yeah.
so I followed that, and I was like, and simultaneously watching him, transition into drifting and get better at the sport. I also watched all of a sudden drifting burst onto the scene and kind of become a way bigger thing than it was 10 years ago. Because 10 years ago, I don't feel like it was a thing at all. And now all of a sudden, drifting's pretty big again. Whether that be for whatever, I feel like I can only attribute at least part of it to guys like him on the grassroots level, whether it be through YouTube or Instagram or whatever, bringing that and exposing it to people who never thought it was attainable. Because everyone's always like, the same thing with drifting. I'm sure that's expensive, can't do it, blah, blah, blah. But then you see someone else your age doing it, and you're like, oh. So I thought in my head, I was like, all right, well, maybe I can do the same thing with motorcycle racing. So I think I put out like a dozen videos over the year last year, over the season, and they did pretty well. I'm like almost got like 1,000 subscribers now, but it's just trying to do things like that, not only for my personal gain, but also just in the back of my head, also thinking maybe this can help kind of revive road racing in the States and give it a new breath of fresh life.
Yeah, I mean, the more people who are putting out quality content that people want to watch around the motorsports scene, I think is great. I don't know if people are going to love this or this format, but I'm just trying something that for me is nearly free. All
Yeah.
it takes is some time, and it's just my first try of doing something. I do have a gimbal for like doing cool video, but I'm 2.5 hours away from the nearest racetrack, and I don't have any cool things to shoot other than the squirrels in the backyard.
Yeah, that's been a struggle for me too over the past 6 months. It's like, well, I'm not at a racetrack, so there's not really anything to make a video of, and I'm not at the point where I'm going to carry around my GoPro and do a daily vlog. I don't think I even want to watch that, so I'm not going to ask anyone else to sit through that. But what's really nice, I think, about it is how cheap it's become to enter that. Like, I bought a year ago now, I bought a GoPro 8, a little stick, some extra batteries, and a few other accessories, and that camera does amazing quality, better than what my computer can edit. So at that point, I can walk around, video stuff with it, talk to it, put it on the bike for the races. Then I go back and I like commentate over the race footage, because again, same thing. I think if you're not really into racing, watching a 7-lap race with repetitive things going on, it can be, well, what's going on? Oh, this is boring. I don't want to watch this. So I think the voiceover kind of helps bring a nice level there of kind of explaining my thought process at the time, what's going on at the track, where my bike is and why, and everything else. And the expense to enter that market has gotten so much lower. So it's nice that you can kind of have a one-stop shop camera for it all. Granted, I'm sure I could make my quality better and have a separate camera, this, that, and the other, but again, I'm getting by with what I got. So
Yeah, and the cell phones, like I have an iPhone
yeah,
X. It's a 4K. It's a 4K
exactly.
camera. It's better than my camera is.
Yeah. It's insane. That's too. Like, there's tons of guys on YouTube too who have very large followings who just film stuff with their iPhone. And it's like, geez,
Yeah,
that's all it takes nowadays.
for sure. I mean, it's not ideal because then you got to make sure you don't have enough or you don't have anything on your phone because
Yeah.
I've had it before where I ran out of space recording something and you lose the end of it. That's
Hmm.
not good.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're really great quality and the prices come down tremendously. So everybody can get into it. It's just who wants to stay in it for the long haul. Because you see tons of people starting podcasts that go in and fade out or
Yep.
start on because you might get 100 subscribers or 1,000 subscribers. You're like, that's not enough,
Yeah.
and they quit.
Yeah.
So, or they get bored, it's not enough, I don't know, feedback for them or something. So like I'm in it. I don't know if I'll be doing this every week forever,
Yeah.
but I think I'll be doing this at some level because I just want to have some sort of voice that I can speak to people. I don't think it'll be a Joe Rogan level, millions of people watching it every day, but who knows? You never know.
Yeah, and for sure, but that's like, again, going back to what I said earlier about like the instant gratification versus not instant gratification, that plays back into that because, even if, this never blows up and you do it until the day you die, I think it is worth it to do it every day until the day you die, as long as you enjoy doing it. And that's all it comes down to. If you're enjoying what you're doing, regardless of feedback, regardless of what other people think, and just doing your own thing, I think success is bound to happen unless
Yeah,
you're doing something outlandish, but obviously we're not here. But
right.
I mean, like, even on, like, I'm a Joe Rogan fan, of course. I feel like most of America is now, which is insane to say. And I'm sure he would say it's the same thing as like that. He's like, he never thought it would get to that where it's at now. He was just some idiot talking into a microphone. And I think that's the same for almost everyone. Like, if you go at it with an expectation of, oh, I want to rule the world and I want to be the biggest this and the biggest that, it'll never materialize. But if you put the work in and work silently and just do it for the love of doing it, I think success follows that happily.
Yeah, for sure. And, I'm so glad that I've done this with certain people, like specifically Dustin Apgar, who's
Mm,
passed away recently. I did
yeah,
a podcast with
horrible.
him in December,
Yeah,
4 months ago now. And I'll never get to talk to him again.
yeah, and a lot of people won't. And honestly, that's something awesome for friends and family that podcast is even around. Um, yeah, I got to meet Dustin a few guys. He was a really great guy and definitely a tragic loss in our community for sure.
It stinks, man. He was super into that para motoring, and
Yeah.
we talked about it quite a bit on that one. I rewatched it the other day, and man, you can't steer someone away from something they love.
No.
And people could say the same thing about, motorcycling is so dangerous. Well, why do you do that? Um, it's you got to do what you want to do and do it as safely as possible. Don't be stupid about it. I have no idea what the circumstances of his crash
Yeah, I
were.
don't know either, but
Whether it's the wind could catch you at the wrong time, you just don't
mhm,
know.
yeah. Um, yeah, that's the thing. Well, and that's one of the things that led me into the track world as well was I was, 17 and I was like with my parents, I was like, I really want a street bike. I really want a street bike. My parents were like, hell no. They're like, you're not allowed to do that until you're financially independent, blah, 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 all these things. And then the idea of racing on the track came around and they were like, fine, as long as you're not on the street. And at first I was like, well, that's stupid. The racetrack's more dangerous. But after being in it for a few years, it's almost an immediate realization of A, how much safer, a racetrack is than the road, but B, how dangerous motorcycles really are. Because like I consider myself pretty good at riding a motorcycle. And the idea of riding around on a street terrifies me. Like, you never know what's around that corner. You never know the condition of the asphalt. You never know what direction the cars are going to be going. And you can be an amazing motorcycle rider, but you just can't take into account all those variables that are just
Yeah.
completely out of your control.
And I think it really depends also on what city you're riding in
Yeah.
because holy crap, I work in Pontiac, unfortunately. And Pontiac, Michigan is It's not the best city.
Yeah.
And the drivers don't drive very well. I saw 4 people run red lights, different lights at different times on the way to work today.
Oh my
You know,
God.
it's constant. Nobody uses the signal ever. Just the laws don't apply, I guess. I don't know what's happening, but it's because the cops can't, the city can't afford to pay cops to you know, to police the motorists, so they just don't.
Yeah. And it's like, I'd agree. Like, granted, I'm only, 22. I've only been driving for 6 or so years now, but even 6 years ago versus to now, I feel like the roads have gotten more sketchy, and I see more drivers doing stupid things and just not using their heads, not using turn signals, like not checking blind spots even. Like, it's just, I don't know if it's because our requirements for obtaining a driver's license are just way too easy, or if it's just, I don't know what else it could be, honestly, or just no one realizes they're driving around in a couple 1,000-pound metal box that can kill people in an instant. Like, no one realizes that for some reason.
And I don't know that licensing is really the fix. I don't know what the fix is. I'm just
Mm.
rambling, because even if you fixed it, they'd still drive. They're just not going to have a license.
Yeah, exactly. And we see that every day, I feel like, where people driving without insurance or with a suspended license. And hell, I have friends who I know have driven with suspended licenses, and it's just like I don't know how you even go about fixing that. Like,
Yeah.
that's a big problem. It really is a big problem.
You almost need like a breathalyzer for a license, or to swipe your
Yes.
license to drive the car.
Yes.
So
Uh,
yeah, I had to go in and get a new picture taken for my license. It expired because you know, just it did after a certain period of time,
yeah.
and they voided my regular license. It gave me a paper copy of my temporary license. I went to get dinner the other night, and they were hassling me about my legit, you know, paper temporary license. And I was like, I'm just leaving. I'm going to the next place.
I'm going to the next place. I don't
Screw
have
you
time for
guys.
this.
It was ridiculous, man. I couldn't believe I was getting hassled about, oh, you can't sit there. I was like, I'm just leaving.
I'm gonna
So,
go. I'm gonna go. That's it. That's good enough for me. Thanks for nothing. I'll see you guys
yeah.
later.
I went across the street, went to Black Rock, and had a delicious meal.
Yes. Good. Good. As you should.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Some of the regulations and just things we as a nation seem to care about, and then things we don't seem to make sense sometimes.
for sure.
Like, yeah.
And so HSBK, that's in Houston, is that right?
So it was located in Houston, Texas, and Oklahoma. We had a location. Well, we still have a location in Oklahoma. That's just kind of a small race shop, as well as some outdoor motocross tracks for private training. But basically, the whole business, the main part of the business now, is located in Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So we developed a good relationship with North American Warhorse over the course of last season. They were one of the main sponsors for the team. And North American Warhorse is a large motorsports dealership out here. They have, just about every brand under the sun under one roof. So after forming that relationship, the owner, Bobby, and the owners of North American Warhorse kind of came together and said, all right, let's, work together on this next season. And so inside of North American Warhorse in Scranton, we built a whole new top of the line workshop and everything. Absolutely beautiful. And that's where we do all the Ducati and Aprilia service for North American Warhorse now, as well as run our race team out of. So over at the shop right now, where I came from not too long ago, we got, a pretty immaculate shop with, street bikes and everything else, as well as, the full blown super bikes over there on some other lifts as well. So it's been a cool experience setting up this whole new shop and everything. Well, not whole new, because it's, obviously in an existing dealership, but it's still kind of a whole new side of that dealership. So that move was big, and trust me, I did a lot of inventorying of products when that move happened, but it's definitely, it's on the ground and it's running now. So it's definitely success so far.
And what does a move of an entire business look like? And what is that? How long does that take?
Oh man, that was I'll tell you. So I was up here in Scranton a few weeks before everything got moved out, just kind of preparing the new warehouse and, just making sure everything was ready to receive the stuff. And I think in total we got two 18-wheeler, two semis full of stuff on pallets, as well as like a few trailers and vans as well. And it was just it was a bit chaotic. I won't lie to you. It was just a lot of stuff coming through the doors, and of course the whole new inventory system too. So everything had to get added into that, and at the same time managing all the orders the website had and everything. So it was a lot, and it was definitely a little dizzying at moments, but we definitely made it through that period, and we got everything set up now to where it's running efficiently.
That's a caravan of an entire business.
Yeah, it really was. It was nuts.
And so tell me a little bit about what you do at the company.
Okay, so basically we have, like I said earlier, our website, hsbkracing.com. And then of course our service department. So I'm the parts manager / parts specialist, whichever you want to prefer. So my job is managing all the website orders, talking to customers on the phone who have questions about specific products, how they fit, new stuff like that, and then managing all the orders. So any day I'll get anywhere from 20 to 50 orders a day that I have to process. And, if it's something I don't have in stock, it's something I got to order. So managing the ordering of all the stuff, the receiving of all the stuff, all the orders that have to go out. And we also have some eBay websites, eBay stores. And so checking those, making sure those orders are getting shipped. And at the same time, also dealing with our dealers and making sure they get the parts that they need. And then coming up here shortly, I'm not sure what the planned launch date is, but we're launching a new website called duckperformance.com that is going to be basically OEM Ducati parts, or anything Ducati, whether it's race parts or OEM parts. So it's going to have, all the parts catalogs from Ducati on there. So if you need, this random OEM bolt from your 999, we're going to be able to get it for you. So my day to day is, and then on top of that, whenever the service department needs parts for whatever bike, I'm the guy who has to get them for them and, figure out what we need, what we don't need, and etc.
So it's a full-time job, sounds like.
Yeah, it's a full-time job and a half at the moment, but it's going well.
And so are you dealing with mainly OEM parts or aftermarket?
Right now, it's almost entirely aftermarket. HSBKracing.com, it's all aftermarket for the, it's pretty much all aftermarket with the exception of like oil filters and small things like that. And then the new website will be a lot of OEM Ducati parts. So, on our main website, we carry brands, DB holders, man, now I'm blanking on it because now I'm being asked, Spider, Spiegler brake products, Brembo, of course, STM, a lot of Italian brands that we're the only importers for, which is kind of cool. And so getting to learn the nuances of all those products has definitely been a fun ride, and learning a lot about the Italian bikes too, because I had a lot of experience on Japanese bikes, Suzuki's, Yamahas, etc., and minimal experience on the Italian side of things. So getting into that has definitely been a whole new world of how the hell do these things work. But I've definitely got a very good handle on it now, and I definitely know more about RSV4s and V4s than I ever thought I would. So.
Yeah, there's a whole new world of parts and brands over there, overseas in Europe, that we Americans aren't always exposed to.
Yes.
I myself am a dealer of Moto D, and Moto D is an importer of Italian products like Spark exhaust, IRC quick shifters, and Easy Grip tank grips, and all those sorts of things. So yeah, it's like, oh, this is kind of like the ones that we were using over here, but it's just a different brand. It's great still. I mean, there's no problems. I haven't had any issues with like Bonamici Italian rear sets. You have to say it like you're Italian. Bonamici.
You got to put the spirit into it for sure. No, yeah, that's definitely the only thing that's I'm sure, I don't know if you've experienced this over the last couple of months, but as a parts guy, dealing in these COVID times has been a bit of a nightmare.
All the shipping delays. Oh my goodness. I'm getting a lot of customers, mainly through Amazon. Actually, I'm getting a lot of customers like, where's my package? But that's where the most international sales for me are coming from. So yeah, a lot of them on there, but it's like, there's nothing I can do. Just wait a couple more days. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And when you got to tell, like, when you find out that one of your suppliers who you have a huge shipment coming from is just their country went into a state of emergency last week, you're like, well, that's great. Now I got to tell, all these people that are waiting for their fairings for the season that it's going to be a little while, but those are just kind of the cards that we're dealt right now. And hopefully we can return to normalcy here soon, to where supply chain issues aren't such a big deal.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Like I still have a day job. I go into work every day, 6 to 2 p.m. and lately 6 to 3, getting a little overtime.
Yeah.
And we can't get people to show up to work to run our lines. We have lines that blank different things for aluminum, different shapes, and we can't get people to show up to run them. So we can't run the lines. We can't make the product. Like 20 people not showing up to work. That's a mutiny. That's that's ridiculous.
It's today, and that's like same thing for us. Like it's almost impossible to find good help right now. And not even good help, literally anyone even willing to work. I don't know what's going on, whether it's just because the financial incentive not to work is still there, honestly, because unemployment's still ripe and their handouts are coming left and right. And, I'm not saying that those things shouldn't be there for people who need them, but when we can't even find someone to come in and wash bikes for us for, $15 an hour, there's something wrong.
Yeah, I just heard, because we were talking about this today at work, Taco Bell is hiring at $14 an hour right now.
It's insanity.
So it's like, how much do you want to pay to get that worker in there? You're not making any money if the line's not running. So I'd rather maybe lose a few dollars, I don't know, or maybe break even rather than not do it at all and piss off the customer.
For sure.
So it's that balance, trying to find labor who's going to show up and do good work and pass a drug test.
Yeah. And the supplies too. Like I know a lot of our suppliers they just can't get the physical material to do what they need to do and make the parts they need to make. And yeah, definitely. Like if you had told us 2 years ago that this would be the state of the world right now, you would have gotten laughed out of the room. But here we are.
And another one, ketchup is in short supply.
Is it?
Ketchup. I just read an article. I read an article today that said because all of the ketchup in sharing serving sizes is they don't want to use that at restaurants. They're all using the single serve packets.
The packets, that makes sense.
And they can't make enough packets because everybody's
because COVID only spreads through big bottles of ketchup. That's the only way you're gonna get it.
Yep. You should put a quote Tyler Humphreys under that.
Yeah, please do. I'll gladly own that one.
Oh man. Yeah, things are changing fast. Things are crazy, that's for sure. So I always ask people, are you a video creator? And you are. So yes. I don't think you said what your YouTube channel was though.
My YouTube channel is just Tyler Humphreys 429. That's my race number. And if you Google it or put it in on YouTube, I'm the first guy that comes up, which I'm a little bit proud of at this point. And yeah, I'll pop right up.
All right. And then while we're at it, what other social medias are you on?
I have an Instagram as well as a Facebook, same thing, Tyler Humphreys 429. You'll find me on Instagram. Facebook, you'll find me under Tyler Humphreys. I have a racing profile. And that sums it up. I stay away from the Twitter all around, even on my personal side. It just seems like that's a dumpster fire at the moment. So staying away from that. But yeah, if you want to check out any of my stuff, like I said, I haven't posted any new videos on my YouTube in a while, but the season's just about underway for me here. So hopefully the next few weeks here, I'll be putting some content back out on that. And I try to stay current with my Instagram posts, but honestly, I usually forget until it's hard when I've run out of riding pictures to post without posting the same events pictures over and over again. So that's at a bit of a standstill at the moment, but getting back on a bike here soon, hopefully. I've been, riding my dirt bike a lot over the winter when I can in the woods with my buddies, but looking forward to get back on some tarmac and go fast. That's what I'm looking forward to.
And so tell me about your 2021 plans.
2021. So I'll go back a little bit just because we got some time to kill, and why not? In 2019, the guy I first worked for, Mike at Metric Devil Moto up here in Pennsylvania, good buddy of mine, like I said, and I worked for him. That's how I got introduced to the sport. And I stopped when I went off to college, but since then, he's been my suspension guy, my tire guy, basically my mentor, if you will, all the way around. And I really can't thank Mike enough for all he's done for me over the years, and the time and the effort he's put into my program and my racing. It's just, I can't believe that someone would do it for me, and I can't say how much I appreciate it. But I raced his GSXR 600 that he has as kind of a shop bike almost in 2019 for a few rounds, and that just came to a short end when I kind of high-sided it pretty good and separated my shoulder and ripped the bike up pretty good as well. And then I got back off that bike and was racing my SV650 again for a while. And then this past winter, we kind of made the decision to reignite the GSXR program. So we've gone and we've kind of addressed some of the issues on the bike and, updated it, new fairings, new this, new that. And so the plan is to come out swinging at CCS New Jersey end of this month on the Gixxer and just kind of seeing where I stack up. Not chasing championships or anything. It's just too expensive. And honestly, I don't quite have the time for it or the financial ability. So just going to go racing when I can and when I want to and when I think it's a good idea, because the middleweight grid is pretty stacked at CCS. Like there's heavy hitters quite a ways back, and the grids are usually like 40 bikes deep. So going out there and running around mid-pack is not the kind of guy I am. I don't like racing unless, all right, I know there's a chance that I can win this or be in the fight at least. So I actually kind of pulled the plug on the first round of the season, which was supposed to be this weekend, just because I just felt like I haven't ridden since last year. I didn't want to go there and just waste my own time, waste his time, and waste a bunch of money for some mediocre results. So the plan is to do Jersey end of this month and just try to go fast. And I'm pretty lap time oriented when it comes to myself. Like, yes, I like winning and I like being on the podium and everything else, but the most satisfaction I get is from setting a lap time. That's by far where I get the happiest. And I know what the bike I'm on is capable of, because guys like Brandon Posh and Xavier Zayat have ridden it before me and done pretty insane lap times at places. So I have that goal in my head of, all right, I want to get near those lap times, if not do those lap times.
Yeah, it'd be really cool to, if you have the opportunity, look at some of their data and compare at the same kind of tracks what they're doing differently. Because I remember one guy put his lap timer on my bike to see what I was doing. I was like, that's kind of strange, but sure, if you want to,
Yeah.
And he showed me the data afterwards. It was just a track day. And you could see the differences. I was on the gas for 30 feet longer. And then before he even, it was just massively different. And to see the data between a Daytona 200 winner and yourself is just so valuable.
Yes. And that's something else I've been super blessed with is, so when I was first working for Metric Devil Moto, during that time, Xavier, he was obviously been a Moto America super sport guy for the past few years and just absolutely ridiculously fast on a motorcycle. And when I first started working there, Mike, the owner, still had Xavier on one of his R6s for all the CCS stuff. And Xavier was the typical club dominating fast kid, where he was just on such another level than everyone else that they had to bring out 150 horsepower R6s to beat him. So and over those years and since then, I've become good friends with Xavier and a lot of other guys, and it's so nice having them around to be like, hey, listen, turn 3, I feel like I'm butchering it. I'm doing this and talking through it with another rider and being able to have those conversations with a guy like that I know, not just like a guy I kind of know, but like a true friend, is such a valuable asset.
Oh yeah, it helps you shave seconds off your lap times.
Yes, for sure.
Just getting that shortcut to the fastest route is really helpful.
Definitely. And then at Jersey, knowing that on the bike I'm riding, he's done 25s at Jersey, which if you've never ridden there, that probably doesn't mean anything, but 25s are fast. That's a fast lap time there. And knowing the bike I'm on is capable of that is just it lights a fire underneath me,
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's there's always more time to find, and he's still thinking, oh man, there's another 210s out there.
Exactly.
So you've been following any of the racing this year?
Oh yeah, I've been pretty, that's the nicest thing I got to say about working in a bike shop is when it's MotoGP weekend, all day Friday, I have free practice on the TV going while I'm doing my work.
Awesome.
So that's been really nice. Very excited for the World Superbike season. I think almost arguably a little bit more than GP. The GPs have been great. Actually, I don't know if that's a fair thing to say. I'm excited for them both. The GPs have been great. Each class, it's exciting to see Cam and Joe doing well in Moto 2. I think Cam's ride, the first round of Moto 2 was absolutely insane. 22nd to 11th, passing previous Moto 3 world champions. And yeah,
Phenomenal.
Very impressive. And then same with Garrett Gerloff so far, third in testing behind Johnny Ray. And I think it was Scott Redding. That's fast company right there. And, his podiums last year. that's something that gives me hope for the future with American road racing, is these guys on the world stage kicking ass right now.
Yeah, I think there's been a long drought of people just not having opportunities or not making opportunities. People say all the time, "Oh, there aren't any more rides." Well, I'm not looking for a ride anymore. Those
Hmm.
are kind of like so exclusive. If you even get one, it's so lucky.
Yes.
I think you should just create your own rides. And now that's really hard to do, like at a world level. Like, how do you start a team from scratch at the world level? But anything can be done if you're dedicated enough. You got enough
Hmm.
money, you can start your own team.
Yeah. And that's something that I think, obviously, the American racing team coming around, and being, born and seeing the success that they had with Joe last year, that kind of made it like, okay, now there's a place for these American guys to actually go. There's not even actually go, but I think even just having the presence of guys like, Cam and in the world, in the MotoGP paddock, and then uh, Garrett in the World Superbike paddock, even just having an American presence there makes it easier for other American riders to get there. Because it kind of opens the doors, right? Like they fought hard and long. I mean, Cam's a 6-time Superbike champion, and that's how long it took him to get overseas with a proper ride and everything else. And I think now that those doors have kind of been knocked down, that hopefully it's a lot easier for other Americans to follow through. And of course, you got Brandon going over to do the BSB paddock again this year. So that's just more good news and everything else. And um, obviously I hope to see more follow. Like, not that I want to see our good riders leave here, but I also want to see, the up and coming riders have a place to develop and everything else. Because at the end of the day, ultimately, in the world of road racing, the ultimate goal is to get to Europe. That's it. That's where the money's made. That's where the big races are at. That's where it's at, right? That's where you want to be as a motorcycle racer. And it just makes me happy to see guys getting there. It's been literally since Ben Spies that we've seen guys really have a lot of success overseas. So it's exciting times.
Yeah, and everything's so close now. MotoGP, it was the closest race ever, the closest top 15. I think
That's
the top
insane.
15 within 9 seconds is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Oh my God. It was a freight train for those last couple laps there at the front. Yeah. Who's your pick for the championship?
Ooh, maybe Dovizioso or Cal Crutchlow.
Yeah.
Those are
That's a
my top
fair
two.
answer. That's a fair answer for this season.
Because I don't know, everybody's so close, and although Ducati is so fast, what about Yamaha winning the first two races? How did that happen?
Yeah. And of course, I think you'll see the KTMs do a lot better once they get into the European tracks, because they've never done well at Qatar, ever. The KTMs have always struggled there. And even though Miguel still put in an impressive ride over the weekend. So there'll be a contender again for podium spots. Hopefully the Petronas team can kind of figure out their stuff, and you'll get Morbidelli up at the front again, because I honestly, coming into the season, he was one of my picks for the championship after how he ended last year.
Yeah, what's going on with two Yamahas, factory Yamahas at the front, and then two satellite Yamahas at the back? How does that happen?
It's the tires, man. I think it was in the first round. I think Morbidelli had a technical issue. I think that's what it was. But after that, it just seems like they're missing something with the setup.
Maybe trying something different, it didn't work.
Yeah, I think so, because obviously at Qatar at the night races, everyone runs the soft tire there. So if you can't make that soft last all the way through the race, or if you can't have it to work well off the bat, you're just going to be doomed. And honestly, I hate to say it, and I'm probably going to get some hate for it, but I think Rossi's day in the sun is just kind of over. I think he's reached the age where it's just not so snappy quick anymore, and it might be time to hang it up.
Well, yeah, but you got to remember, I think he qualified 21st, but he might have been like a second off the pace,
Yes. Yeah.
It's
But
extremely close.
it's so close, so close. But at an older age, well, not even an older age, but those 10 tenths within that second gap are the hardest 10 tenths to find ever, right? Like those are the 10 tenths that separate everyone, right? Like, and not to say that Rossi can't do it or whatever else, but I will want the guy to get another podium or even another win so badly, because I know Italy would just burn down as a whole. But
I would
no.
love to see him get his 10th world title. That'd be great. just to see him achieve it. And I'm sure
Yeah.
he'd be like, all right, I'm done. Thank
I'll
you
see
very
you
much.
guys. Thank you very much.
But yeah, I don't know if it's gonna happen. But I'm
Sure.
somebody, I'm not able to race in my prime, I guess, because of
Mm,
money. And
yeah.
so I have it in my mind. I want to race until I'm 100, or when I'm very old, because I think it's possible. I don't know if I'll be able to afford it, and I hope I
Yeah.
can with my business. But you never know. So I think that you can still be very competitive at an older age. I just think maybe for him, he doesn't need to be. He's already a multimillionaire with
True.
a hot girlfriend, and he doesn't need anything.
Yeah.
So at some point you lose that fire. You lose that, even if you love it. He's 25 years in of, a
Yeah.
championship season, going to 14 countries every year.
Yeah.
That takes a toll on you, I think. And I don't know, I'm not his friend, I don't talk to him, but I would have to imagine that from his early days becoming a professional in the first couple of seasons are vastly different than how he feels today.
Yeah. And that's actually, yeah, that's something I left out of my whole little spiel there is I think, yes, he still loves the sport and he wants to win and everything else, but at a certain point, maybe that the core of that passion has kind of gotten away from him. The core of that real drive has kind of gotten away from him a little bit. But still, you can't, obviously he's the GOAT. So
Yeah.
you can't discount anything of that. So
You can't take it away from him, but it takes a certain type of crazy sometimes to get that lap time, right? Especially if
yes.
it's in bad conditions. Like Marquez just seems to thrive in those horrible conditions or drying tracks.
Yeah.
That's his forte. But other people shy away from that because it is more dangerous. You have more
Mhm.
risk. People don't like that as much.
No. Jack Miller's one of those guys too. He's an absolute psychopath in the semi-damp conditions. Like I think it was Argentina a year or two ago when he was on the Primark bike, and Q2, like half damp track. I think he almost crashed like 6 times on his way to pole, and it was just like out of the seat here and there, and it's just like at a certain point, when does everyone else go, yeah, I think I'm good, I'll just walk away from that one, and no thank you. Like I can't even imagine riding one of those bikes in the dry, let alone a damp track on slicks or in the rain. Like no way.
Well, it's all
Hats off.
it's all about the fundamentals, right? You can brake, you can turn, and you can accelerate, but you can't combine any of them.
Yeah, I learned that one the hard way. I never, my first time riding in the rain ever, not ever, but like ever on proper rain tires and not on a go-kart track was in 2018, the day after I set pole for Moto America. So I was on pole at my home track by almost a second. And then, I was feeling great. I knew I had the pace to maybe run away with it. It was probably still going to be a fight, but then it rained all weekend. And literally the sighting lap of that race was my first ever time on rain tires around New Jersey. And if you've ever ridden Jersey in the rain, it's like an ice skating rink. It's the worst place ever. And everyone, even in the Moto America paddock, will agree with you. It's an ice skating rink. And I think on the sighting lap alone, I had like 3 moments where I had the rear come around on me. And like, I was like coming up to the grid spot and I was like, oh my God, I'm really about to do this. Into turn 1, I get passed by 2 guys and then they both wipe out right in front of me. And then, I hold everyone up for a few laps, tiptoeing my way around. And after that race, I was like, yep, I'm never riding in the rain again. Like it just takes everything I enjoy about riding a motorcycle and throws it out the window. So I'm like, I'm good with that. No, thank you.
Yeah, it's a high stress environment, that's for sure.
Yeah. Oh, not fun. Cold, wet, just scary. I don't enjoy it.
Imagine doing it on slicks before the track is ready.
No, thank you. Hard pass.
Oh man. But yeah, that's what they live for, right?
Yeah. And that's kind of also that experience is kind of what for me kind of separated, like made my dreams like kind of come down a notch, where I got into the sport late in life, right? Like I didn't start riding until I was 17 and whatever else. And sure, that's not late in life per se, but like if you want to get to a pro level and be there and actually like do well, it's a little bit late in life to get into the sport. And I did my thing. I did the Moto America thing. I had some solid, top 5 finishes and everything else. And after that, kind of looking at my position of how I got into everything and whatnot, I was like, all right, and how much money I spent on those whatever 4 weekends alone of Moto America was astronomical. And, granted, I had great sponsors who helped me out, which was awesome. But after that, I was kind of like, is this even, what's not what's the point, but like more so of going back to the long-term focus kind of thing of, I could keep trying to do this. I could keep, throwing my head at the wall and everything I have at the wall to try to make it stick and make it happen. But at the end of the day, what's it for?
Yeah, I guess people think you can get picked up by a big team, and maybe that would have been possible. But there's no big teams.
There's no big teams.
There's no factory teams anymore.
No.
How did that happen?
Oh my gosh, the money just. It comes back to the culture of it, right? Like there's the viewership is not the viewership is down, but the care, like nobody cares is what's going on. And, you got, a single, I bet, yeah, a single basketball player in the NBA probably makes as much as the entire Moto America paddock makes in a year, and it's just those resources are so focused elsewhere. And which, you can't necessarily blame them either. Because if I was the owner of a business that wasn't focused around motorcycles, and some motorcycle person came up to me and was like, hey, blah, 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 you should, check this out. Maybe you could support me, whatever. I'd be like, why would I do that when, I can do X, Y, and Z for less money and with more exposure and whatever else. So I get that side of it.
But I would say, Kyle Wyman just got a Panera Bread sponsorship.
I did see that.
Everybody's talking about it, man.
Yeah, that is a big deal. And we need more things like that for sure.
Because the racing community knows that every sponsor is really valuable. So when people get a good sponsor like that, I must have saw 15 posts about Kyle Wyman and eating Panera. They got a pick 2 and all this stuff. Yeah. I was like, I love Panera. I could get a Panera too.
Yeah, I agree with that. And on that same vein, I was watching something last night. Are you familiar with Gypsy Tales? It's like a motocross podcast. The guy's Australian. Yeah. He had someone on from one of the owners of the Geico Supercross team, and he was basically talking about how back in the day, they would get like annual reports about how much marketing revenue or how much basically marketing dollars their sponsorship equated to for Geico. And for some years, it was like $40 million. And, that's how much they would have had to spend to get the same amount of marketing from what they got from the team. Yeah. And if we can do whatever we can, I don't know what the magic formula is or anything, to get it so road racing or Moto America is in that same state where suddenly we're bringing in these sponsors where they can say, because of this sponsorship, we've got, another $4 million in revenue this year. That would be huge. And then I think you would see a huge turnaround in the sport.
And so here's my plan. I'm focusing on building a business that can sell products, and also building a podcast network that I can talk to people and promote all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So I've already had some of my vendors on here. And so I want to build like a business that can imagine I get a sponsor, I can promote them on the podcast, and then I can sell their products too. Yeah. So not only am I selling their parts, but promoting them. And, hopefully I'll have more than a couple thousand subscribers at that point. Yeah. I guess that's the idea, is to give them more, because not every racer can actually sell their products. No. How many people can sell exhaust for an exhaust company? Very few racers can do that. So I'm I'm a business now. I'm not a person anymore.
Yes. Yeah. And that's kind of the similar approach I've taken to my YouTube thing. Whereas I can offer the people who support me a lot more value through their support of me, and just by, giving them some extra exposure. Granted, I'll never be able to fully pay these people back or anything like that for some of the things they've done for me. It's just, over the moon. I, again, can't say how grateful I am to some of these people. And I just want to try to give back to them as much as I can in any way I can. So that's just how I kind of see YouTube as another opportunity for that.
And so you want to dive into your YouTube channel a little bit? Tell me about your filming strategy.
Sure. So I figured out real quick after my first weekend of trying to film racing stuff, it was like, oh, this is harder than I thought it would be. Because I didn't realize how in the zone I was all weekend long until it's suddenly like, oh, I got to think about filming this or filming that or getting a GoPro on the bike before the race and everything else. It kind of adds a whole nother level to the thing. Track days and like whatever else, like more casual events, it's a lot easier. I'm not like, I don't have that pressure put on myself, but I always just try to get like an intro clip, because I also find that when I'm filming stuff, I always think, oh, I need to film more or else I'm not going to have enough to make a video. And then I sit down to edit it and I'm sitting there with 45 minutes of footage and I'm like, oh my God. And then it ends up being like 10 minutes of actual video. So it's like, it's also like maintaining that balance of getting the important messages across and getting like the good solid intro to what's going on, an explanation what to expect. The intro, I think, is like the most important part, obviously, because that's what's going to grab people's attention and whatever else. So getting that intro and then just getting footage for the rest of it. So on race weekends, at least when I was racing middle lightweight class, the grids aren't exactly the biggest, and I was pretty much consistently either winning those races or having someone else like Tyler Scott check out in front of me where I couldn't touch him. So it was pretty boring to watch unless you were like really nitpicking lines and everything else. So I found myself where I'd have, 3 races with highlights in one video. But then I did one race at Jersey one weekend where I entered the middleweight race on my SV. So I'm on a bike, a grid of like 30, 35 expert 600s. And there I am on my little SV 650 and like 7 rows back or something. And I just did it to kind of as a joke, not a joke, but just kind of like see what would happen, how good I could do. And I ended up running in the top 5 for a few laps. And I think I finished like 6th or 7th in the race. And
Awesome.
that's my most viewed video to date. Like it has 13,000 views at this point, just because it's like the title is Racing 600s on my SV 650. So it's just a balance of trying to think about. I also try to put myself in the audience's shoes. Like what would I want to watch if, the roles were reversed and I was a guy on YouTube and I found this new YouTube channel where this guy makes motorcycle stuff. What do I want to watch? I would want to see more of, what do you pack to bring to the track? What's your pit setup like? Why did you set your tire pressure there? Why did you make that move on the racetrack? Why didn't you try this? And why didn't that work? And whatever else, right? Just kind of giving more of an explanatory side of things. Because again, unless you're there road racing yourself, it's hard to be like, this is why I didn't make that pass. Unless someone explained it to you, you just wouldn't know,
Right. Yeah.
And that's what, like, same thing with like Jersey. It's a track I have a lot of laps at. It's my home track, if you will. And, I coach for track day organizations as well. Evolve GT, they're my main track day organization, and they're honestly one of my main supporters. So I should have shouted them out sooner, but they're my guys. So I've coached for them there a lot, and I know the track really well. And I see people constantly making the same mistakes there, whether it be in beginner, intermediate, or the advanced group, like constantly rushing the chicane, which is 3A, B, and C. And like it's the textbook. It always happens. And in my videos, I always break it down whenever I've broken it down when I'm in turn 3. I'm like, look, I'm here and I'm doing this at this point on the track because of this. And the amount of comments and messages I've gotten where it's been like, oh my God, that's helped me so much with that. It's just been super rewarding. And I just wish there was something like that when I was first getting into it.
Yeah. Sorry about the alarm. That's
No, you're good.
I have an hour and 15 minutes to go to sleep alarm.
Okay. Gotcha.
So yeah, but it's so valuable to have that information because unless somebody's telling you, you wouldn't understand. And for new riders, the track layouts aren't always designed, like the curbings are in certain places, not necessarily because you should be there, because that's where they think cars might be sometimes, most of the time. That's why they're designed that way. And so motorcycles don't always use the curbings, but people think they should be next to them all the time. So sometimes you should take wider lines than you expect because it makes, the straightaway longer. And this part over here is just getting to the straightaway, the S section sometimes. So it's all about utilizing, the longest portion you can be on the gas and throwing away everything before it, pretty much.
Yeah. And something else too, with the track day scene, the number one thing that I see, people that cause crashes, that, cause frustration, that cause, mistakes and things like that, is just a lack of trail braking. And trail braking is a hard concept to explain to people who aren't super familiar with track stuff, who aren't familiar with, racing or whatever else, or just even new motorcycle riders, or even experienced motorcycle riders don't fully understand trail braking. And trying to explain to someone is like, you need to be on the brakes all the way to the apex. and then you release the brakes, you stand the bike up, and you get on the throttle. Like that's the order of operations there. Like saying that to someone can sometimes just go right over the head. Like most of the time I feel like it does. And then whereas a video, you can literally watch and listen to my RPMs and how they're changing and where I'm getting on throttle and where I'm not. And, you know, also videos where I'm riding with another, you know, less experienced rider and trying to coach them. And I can point out their errors, be like, look, see how you can hear their throttle crack open 4 feet behind before the apex. They're just asking to high side themselves to the moon. And here's why, because, you know, X, Y, and Z. Whereas it's hard to give that level of communication on track or to, you know, without visual reference.
Right. And I don't think people understand the detail or the nuance. It's like a chef, like a really great chef, could cut up an onion 1,000 times better than I could. But I could cut up the onion. It's like they're thinking the same thing. Well, I can step on the brake, or I can pull the brake lever. But that's not what we're talking about. You know, it's millimeter perfect. You're trying to be extremely deliberate with your controls. You're not just letting off and just dumping the brake lever. You have to be extremely smooth. Something that stuck with me that I think helped me a lot is the fastest guy has the slowest hands.
Yes.
So that means you have to be extremely precise with your hand movements. There's no chopping the throttle. There's no whacking the throttle open. Maybe only if you're banging gears on the straightaway and you don't have a great quick shifter, I guess. Yeah,
literally the most important part of your throttle is that first 4 or 5%. The faster you can get to that first 4 or 5% where you're just cracking it open initially at apex, that's the key, right? You're looking for the minimal amount of time between brake pressure going to 0 and throttle going up to at least 1%. You're like, that gap should be nil to none, right? And I don't think a lot of people understand that, where they want to get to the apex, stand the bike up, and just whack it open, you know? And it's just never a healthy ending there.
And then once you get more experience, you realize now you're braking too much. Now you can actually go like 13 miles an hour faster in that same corner that you thought you couldn't go any faster.
Or people, when they're breaking their brains out before turn 1, realize that they can actually carry those brakes into turn 1 and then therefore move their braking point back 50 feet. And they're like, oh my God, I can do that. And it's like, yeah, you can do that.
Yeah. Do you think there's ever a situation where you don't trail brake?
Not really. No, like I really can't think of, like, I'm trying to think of any, like, unless if you don't need the brakes for a turn, obviously you don't need to trail brake. But if you're braking for a corner, you should be trail braking. That's
just proper etiquette.
It's just how it is. Yeah, that's just the way to go fast. And if you disagree, I'm sorry, you're stupid and you don't know what you're talking about. Like,
you know, I had people disagree with me for so long about the front brake is more powerful than the rear brake.
The rear brake's a hell of a tool.
it's beneficial, but it's not everything, right?
Yes. I mean, I'm not preaching what I practice here, because if I'm being honest, on a mini bike, on like go-kart tracks and everything, I use the rear brake constantly. I trail brake with it. I use it for mid-corner adjustment. You put me on a big bike on a full-size track, and honestly, I forget about the rear brake. And I know it's not proper, and I know it can help me, and I know the benefits between it's slow. It's so much more braking power than you would think comes from the rear brake, and also the benefits of trailing with the rear brake are huge. Like the way it helps the bike track into the corner, and even on double apex corners, the way you can use the rear brake mid corner to just kind of lightly get on it to help bring the bike back in towards the apex is immense. And of course, I'm preaching to myself here as well, but then you see the opposite as well. I feel like you see guys on the track who are using 80% rear brake and 20% front. And it's like, that should be reversed. In my head, ideally, it should be about 80%, 90% front, and then the extra little bits, the rear.
Yeah, it definitely helps stabilize you a lot. Yes. I would always use the rear brake coming up to stoplights because, and I would love to practice slow speed stuff in parking lots, like going 0 miles an hour, just seeing how long you can not move and just balance and just modulating the clutch a little bit and using that rear brake. It helps stand the bike up all the time.
Yeah.
And it definitely can decrease your radius in those double apex or any corner,
Yes.
which is definitely beneficial. And I would always use it for elevation. If you're going, like, imagine Road Atlanta coming
Mhm.
down the last turn, I would always use it there, so it helps keep the
Suck the
bike
back end
down.
down. Yeah.
Yeah, so you don't go up too high.
Yeah, and it helps calm the bike down so much in braking zones. Like if you're heavy on the brakes going into a fast braking zone, often you can get the bike kind of light where the rear end's kind of wiggling. The rear brake just basically, right, you got your, not for you, but for the other people, but you got your bike up here, and then just on the rear brake just helps squat it down and just kind of get that compression into the shock in the braking zone, where otherwise all your weight's going forward. The rear brake puts some of that weight back on the rear and just stabilizes it all. My rear brake exposure really happened at, I won a free YCRS Yamaha Championship riding school back in 2017. Basically, my first year out of the minis, they decided they had a scholarship program, and I got selected to do this school with them, which was pretty cool. So I flew out to Arizona. I got to ride with Kyle Wyman and a few of the other guys there. And at the end of the school, they always do the thing where they're like giving you guys different drills to do while you're doing a lap. And the one was like rear brake only. I was like, all right. It's like, I knew I should be using the rear. And then I did it for that lap, and I was like, oh my God. Like, I was almost near the same braking markers where I was just using the fronts. And it's like, if I could just take that little extra bit and apply it to my racing all the time, I would probably be faster than I am. But here I am, still not doing it. Maybe this season, we'll see. Maybe I just need a sweet thumb brake.
I sell thumb brakes.
Ooh, oh, don't tell me that.
They're not super cheap, obviously,
No.
but they're pretty trick, man. They look
Yeah.
pretty cool. I think I actually it's Akasado,
Mhm.
and there might be another brand I think that sells them now. So yeah, they're out there and they're available. I think they're in the couple $100 range, but
Yeah.
if it helps you ride better, I mean, it's worth every penny. You look at some of the MotoGP guys; they have like 3 levers on their left hand. They got a clutch, they got a start device. I don't even know what it all does.
That's the cool setup I've seen. Is I think I saw it first on Johnny Ray's videos. He posted one where he showed his whole clutch side setup, and his clutch lever's like pointed way up in the sky, and there's another lever right in the front, and the clutch lever's up top because you only use it for the starts on a super bike, right? You got auto blip and quick shifters, so then you have the rear brake is almost like a clutch lever there for him, which is definitely a cool setup. And that's the biggest thing that's prevented me, is just I struggle so much because I get up on the balls of my feet on the pegs when I'm going into a corner. So right hand corner, my right foot's up on the ball of its feet, and I can't get to the brake lever when I'm doing that. And I think that's the biggest thing that's kind of pushed me away from using the rear brake, is just because of how I put my feet.
I think so many people feel the same way. It's so awkward. You can put it there, but then you're not putting your leg in the right position for at least the normal position you're used to.
Yes.
So it's just a different feeling. And I always drag my toes on the ground, so I always got to be careful about not putting my feet too far underneath the foot pegs.
Yeah, I always on my SV at least I have a Vortex rear sets on it, but I have to shift. Basically, the pegs have a break off point where they're supposed to snap when you crash, and I cut my foot pegs down to that point just so I have that extra bit of toe clearance, because it makes a huge difference actually.
Yeah. And I always have to use those titanium toe sliders, otherwise I'll eat right through the boot.
Yeah. Luckily, between the cutting the foot peg and having the rear sets as high as they go, I've avoided destroying too many boots. But I still go through about a pair of Super Techs every year, which sucks. But here we are.
And those aren't cheap. Those are consumables, though.
Those are consumables because they were the first boots I ever bought. Was a pair of Super Techs, and honestly, they feel like you're wearing a sneaker. And after experiencing that, like even just trying on a cheaper boot, I was like, it's not worth, like, I'm going to spend the extra money, and the product is truly worth that extra money.
Well, they have like torsion control for your ankle and all that.
They got like the inner booty. Yeah, they're awesome. They're awesome.
I think I've had 3 or 4 of those myself.
Yep.
And seems like most racers have the mentality, I'm not going to buy the entry level. Why would you buy the entry level? It's like, I'm just going to buy the best one.
Yeah. Pretty much. One thing left on the list, though, for sure, is one of the airbag suits. undersuits, because my Tai Chi suit that I have is compatible with them. And, it sucks that they're whatever, $1,200-$1,400. That's almost another suit right there. So, but if in hindsight, if I had it about 2 years ago, I probably wouldn't have separated my shoulder. So, it's worth it, but it's just one of those bullets I don't want to bite, but I'm gonna have to.
A suit looks really a lot better than the hospital bill.
Yeah, it does. I know it does. I know it.
But yeah, it's just it's like, where do you want to draw the line on your gear?
Yeah, that's what it comes down to.
And what do you think about the Leatt neck braces?
I haven't seen any of those in road racing yet.
They do make them.
Yeah, I actually know I've seen one or two guys use them on track, but that's not for me. That's not for me, because I turn my head so much that and the idea of just something kind of restricting me here, it doesn't sound like I would enjoy it.
Yeah, that's the big barrier. It's like, how do you have a neck brace that keeps your neck from breaking?
Yes.
Also allows you to do this.
Yes, it doesn't quite work like that.
Pretty difficult.
Man. Yeah, that's actually on that topic real quick. Vision and turning your head. That's, if there's anyone getting new into the sport, new into track days or racing, I'd say that's the number one thing to focus on out the gate is vision. Because vision is number one, and the rest of the stuff follows after that. Because if you're not looking through a corner, you're not going to go fast.
I think of it as, I come from hockey, from ice hockey. I think of Wayne Gretzky. He had great vision. He could just see the ice and see what was happening and just know where to be, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so I think that's so important. Obviously, looking through the corners. I shouldn't say obviously, but because you should always be looking through the corners, because you're going so fast. First of all, you need to see as far as you possibly can, and to see maybe a stricken rider, a rider on the ground. Could be an animal. It could be a flag you're trying to look out for. But also, vision is important as far as seeing the other riders in front of you. Imagine you have a train of 3 or 4 people and you can't see your braking marker anymore. So you have to change up where you're going to look a little bit, and trying to be as close to the guy in front of you, it hinders your vision. And when you've got your head a foot off the ground, trying to, maximize your body lean angle, it hinders your vision. It looks different down there.
Yeah. And that's another benefit. So when I'm doing the track days, when I'm racing, I only mount my GoPro onto the tank of the bike and use like an arm to point it over the windshield a little bit. But at track days, I'll actually mount it on my helmet, because I'm not as worried about, things going wrong there, but still, of course, aware of it. But on that camera angle, it's nice because when I'm doing the voiceovers, I can be like, now look, like at this point, the camera's pointed right at the apex. I hit the apex and you see the whole camera angle shift to the point where you can't see my bike in the frame anymore or anything else. And what the camera's seeing is literally exactly what I'm looking at. So that should tell you right there that I'm looking at the apex, I'm hitting the apex, and immediately vision shifts, bike gets picked up, and power gets put on. And that visual representation, again, is super handy, I think.
Oh, yeah. And there's a bunch of guys in my region when I was racing who, they look like owls. I'm like, how can you even turn your neck that far? Like, my head doesn't go that far.
Yeah, yeah.
And I got some pictures. I have one in particular. It was Devin Perlinfine. I'm following him around mid-Ohio, and I'm just staring at him. I'm like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
Why am I just looking at this guy in front of me? It's almost like not embarrassing, but like I'm doing the wrong thing there.
Yeah, it's always, those situations are so easy in hindsight to be like, why was I doing that? Because that's the biggest thing when you're following someone in a race. I feel like there's one of two things that happen to people who are not doing it correctly, if you will. I'm probably talking to myself again here. So is A, staring at the back of the person in front of you and not trying to look around them or look forward past them at all. And B, following the person, but the entire lap, you're almost following them on a line like you're going to pass them without actually passing them. Because then you're giving up the faster line than on a person that you're faster than, but you're on the slow line now, even on places where you're not trying to pass them, you're just there because you're right behind them. So, in those situations, just lapping behind someone, following them, in line on the correct line until you are ready to make the pass and then do it. No point in following them around on a line like you're going to pass them without passing.
And missing out on the ideal draft.
Yes, for sure.
You got a double whammy there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so there's so many nuances of racing. I've been doing sim racing indoors on
Oh
my
yeah,
rig upstairs.
that's sweet. I'm jealous.
We talk about buying the best of everything. Well, I bought the best wheel and pedals that I could find, Fanatic
Yeah.
DD1 pedals and the V3 inverted pedals. It's awesome. But I bought the cheapest mounting system that mounted to the base, the seat and what it
Yeah.
mounts to, and it's a piece of crap.
Yeah, that's the holdback, isn't it?
Oh man, I bought the wrong one. So I've been just struggling with this thing because it's just not stable. So when you
Yeah.
go to turn, first it goes like this, goes side to side, and it goes front to back. It's like I
Yeah.
have that new feature that they have. You can change
In
the
the
toe
Formula
angle.
One car. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like that, but the whole thing comes down.
Yeah. That's
So,
definitely not ideal.
but you know what? I think it makes me be stronger because I have to actually keep the wheel in the same spot. So
Mhm.
it's like a isolation workout. So
Hmm.
I should start my Strava workout on my watch before I
Yeah.
do that.
That's where I should start off. No, I've always wanted to take the jump and then dive into the sim stuff. It's just, again, comes back to it. Why would I go spend a couple $100s on a sim? That's a set of tires right there.
Well,
So
yeah, I figured I'm not going back to the racetrack for I think 2 or 3 years. So this
mhm,
is my fix in the living room.
completely reasonable, completely. And plus, I'm too busy on behind me here. I got a stationary bike that I bought this winter.
Oh, there you go.
It's trying to stay fit. Things like that are sucking up my money too. So
Yeah. So I think we're about an hour and a half already.
okay.
Is there any sponsor shout outs you want to give?
Yeah, I'll do a little bit of a laundry list real quick. Not laundry list, but Metric Devil Moto. If you need suspension work in the Northeast, he's your guy. Check him out. Trackside Parts Club, parts distributor at the racetrack as well. New Jersey Mini GP. Great place to go to learn to ride a motorcycle on a mini track without the high cost and everything else. And honestly, well, actually, I didn't touch on this at all, but to do a little segue here, Mini GP, right? You have Brandon Posh, Xavier Zayat, Anthony Mazziato, Benjamin Smith, Ben Glotty, Gus Rodeo. Who else am I forgetting about? Well, there's 6 current and 1 or 2 past Moto America riders that have all come out of the same program, and myself included. So that's 7, right? That's 7 people in 5-6 years that have come out of that program right to Moto America and done very well. So if there's nothing else that speaks for it, I think that does. And the value of a mini bike and learning what those things do it's immense. So definitely, if you're interested in learning and making the transition to track or even just becoming a better track rider, check out Mini GP. And then past that, Evolve GT track days and N2 track days as well, both supporters of mine. And thank you to all those guys for all the support over the years. And of course, mom and dad too, if they're watching. Couldn't do it without them. But yeah, that sums it up pretty well.
All right, very good. And do you have any parting message for the world?
If you want to keep up with what's going on with my race season and everything else, check out my YouTube channel and my Instagram. And yeah, come check out what goes on in a day in my life and see how we can see if we can do well this season. And how about yourself? You got anything to add?
Yeah, I'm just gonna work on getting this edited and posted in the next couple of weeks. It'll probably be a week or 2 before I put this one out there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna be eating some dinner later. I'm hungry, so
It's steak time for me as well.
yeah, I'm gonna get some food, take a shower, and go to bed. So
Awesome.
thank you for coming on here and talking with me.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
And I'll talk to you soon. Thanks again.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric.
Bye-bye.
Bye.